Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to the Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. I'm your host, Stephen Nooner.
And I'm Bob Gibbons.
Welcome back, my friend.
Well, we're excited today. We've got Derek Chapin with us, and Derek is the founder and CEO of Aspira Works. And but a few things about him that's pretty interesting. He's got a really incredible background. He was involved with Woot. I don't know if you remember Woot, W-O-O-T.
Sounds like an A&M company.
Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll have to ask him about that.
I am a Longhorn.
Okay.
There we go.
There may be a story there then. Very successful exit to Amazon. Sold that to Amazon many years ago. Then he was also in Venly, one of the founders of Venly, and scaled that up to about 40 people. Sold that as well. And then also co-founded another company called Meh.com. M-E-H. I'm not kidding.
I believe it. There's a meme on that.
We have a lot to talk about. If you want to know about Derek's company, current company, go to aspiraworks.com, and that's A-S-P-I-R-A works.com. Welcome to our show.
Great. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. We like to start every show with wisdom of others, and you provided a quote from Leonardo da Vinci.
Going way back.
Way back.
Way back.
And I've never seen this quote before, so it's going to be added to my collection. It says, learning never exhausts the mind.
Right.
Why is that important to you?
Well, I think, basically we all have an infinite capacity to learn. And, really what I view myself as is somebody who's endlessly curious, right? And always cognizant of how much there is in the world that I don't know, and I want to learn and I want to know. And so, I suppose if I could spend my days absolutely any way I wanted, I would just sort of endlessly kind of research and read new things. That's the most rewarding thing.
I don't think this really applied to me when I was cramming for tests in college, though. I definitely felt like I was over, I had a capacity that had been exhausted long before.
And
it's one thing when you're, you sort of have the drive because you really want to learn something, and as opposed to like you're being measured for it, right? But you have the intrinsic drive to learn it.
Right.
And that's why it hit me, because to me, like that, what you just described, Bob, to me, like, is probably a sign you're not learning anything, right? I mean, what I thought about is like it never exhausts the mind. And I was thinking about the show and how every week I learn something new and I leave energized from the experience, not, oh my gosh, I got to cram for a test, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting when you get into a business situation, you can kind of evaluate employees based on this, because there's certain employees who are always, in a way, asking, "Is this on the test?"
Right. Right.
Just like in college, right?
Like me, right, on
People
the
are always
show.
asking, "Is this on the test, teacher?" And if you have an employee that's really just saying, "Do I have to know this? Is this going to be on my test? Do I have to know this for my job or whatever?" That's not probably who you want around.
Well, exactly. And I think particularly in, smaller and mid-sized businesses, basically you can't, have people who or you need people who basically take their own initiative, or real, self-starters, right? And you don't really have the time to sort of, every day give somebody guidance like, okay, today you need to do X, Y, and Z, and sort of spell it out. So people who are sort of internally, motivated to learn and accomplish, that's one of the things you want to look for.
And one of the things I found was fascinating about you is that you actually were an English teacher in Czechoslovakia before the wall fell. When it was
So
still
glad you brought that
communist.
up.
Actually, after the
Oh,
wall
it was after
fell.
the wall fell.
Yeah,
Okay, so it was Czech Republic at that point.
it was the Czech Republic, which interesting note that the Czech government has decided they want to be called Czechia, which is a new development.
They obviously need a PR and branding company.
Right.
Can we be Texia?
So if you look at Google Maps, you'll see them labeled as Czechia,
Oh, wow.
which is kind of a new one. But
That's hilarious.
this was a couple years after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the liberation of the Eastern Bloc, from Soviet dominance. And interesting, what I was really seeking to do at the time was not specifically live or work in the Czech Republic. I was seeking to have an international work experience of some sort somewhere, right? Just to have that that life experience and that learning experience. And so I was researching various ways of how could I go about this. And I found a program called Education for Democracy. And basically what happened is during the days of communist domination, Soviet domination, basically everybody had to learn Russian. As soon as that ended, all the countries said, okay, Russian is out, English is in. But who do you have to teach English, right?
Sure.
And they wanted so you didn't have to have a teaching certificate.
Right.
You just needed to be a native English speaker with a college degree from the U.S. or Canada. So that's the gig. That's how I got it.
The cool thing about that is that my sister did something similar in 1976.
Right.
And she was teaching Arabs on the West Bank in Jerusalem English.
Right.
So very interesting experience.
Right.
We can talk more about that later.
A quick question. What is the mindset? Like, what, just short, because we want to get to, but what is the mindset post-domination? I mean, like, was there energy? Was there enthusiasm? Or, I mean...
Oh, I think there's certainly a lot of enthusiasm, and basically I'd say the overriding feeling is this need to kind of make up for lost time, right? Because given their history of domination by various parties, right? And if you go back and you were to look at the period like around World War I or so. Particularly the western part of the Czech Republic, Bohemia, was pretty well developed economically, industrially, and so they have the sense of like, well, if it weren't for the domination of the Nazis and the Soviets and et cetera, we would be on par with the Netherlands or Belgium or Switzerland, right? So there's a real drive there to make up for lost time.
Interesting.
And I bet that applies to what we're going to talk about, which is your business next. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, I got to know about Woot.
Right.
Being a Longhorn.
So, yeah, give us a little background. Now, sort of where did you get started and how did you end up at Woot?
Well, so Woot actually grew out of, Matt Rutledge, who, I've known for many, many years, he and I started a business, kind of a wholesale computer component distribution business back in the 90s. And basically what we were doing is sourcing, computer components that were kind of previous generation, end of life, overstock, all sorts of kind of odd inventory that way. And
For what purpose?
Basically, it was a wholesale distribution.
So people still wanted that stuff.
People wanted
Well, back
to
in
repair
that
stuff.
time, it seems like a long time ago, and in tech years, it is a long time ago. But you still had all these like mom and pop computer shops that built up systems on spec or to order and things like that. So there was still quite a market for that before everything became like an HP or a Dell sort of box,
Or in
right?
the cloud, right?
Or in the cloud, right?
Yeah, there was no cloud yet.
Right. Not really, much of an internet to speak of. Certainly not the way we think of it today.
Yeah.
And so then, we got that business off the ground, and that was actually before I went to Czech. So we were really young back then, like 22, 23 sort of age, and but I stayed, for the first year to kind of launch it, get it off the ground. And then went to Czech Republic and went to grad school and did all these other things in between, and then Matt, basically had continued to plug away at the business and evolve it, and basically came up with the concept of launching Woot, the website, as a way of sort of addressing these inventory issues with the way the landscape was changing and evolving. There was so much sort of consolidation in that sort of computer component space, right? And you'd get down to these, sort of smaller odd lots of inventory. So what's a real sort of both efficient and kind of fun and irreverent, and that's something Matt really excels at, that component of it. And so we were talking, and he basically said, "Hey, I think I'm really onto something here, and do you want to come back and help me grow this up and scale this up?" And I said, "Sure, that's a great opportunity." So that's what got me back involved after all those years, and this was still pretty early days. This was before Twitter and before Facebook and such, right?
Right.
So real early days, and we basically pioneered this model of the daily deal, which has been emulated by a lot of companies and variations since. But at the time, it was really unique, and we had all the classic. Business articles, basically saying how, well, this is a novel or interesting idea, but, it'll never last, it will never go anywhere, all that sort of stuff, right?
And you built it up.
Right.
To a point, and Woot is the Amazon exit?
Yeah, so basically we had a really tremendous growth rate, and really it was driven a lot by, just a lot of organic, sort of grassroots, bloggers and that sort of, community. We also got a lot of free media write-ups in, the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, etc. So there was a lot of media attention around that. But we were able to, grow that up and, caught the attention of Amazon fairly early on.
So why did they want to buy it?
Well, because I think they really looked at what we were doing, and the way we engaged with community. We were very sort of open and transparent with, with the community, and we really had a very, loyal sort of following. And I think they were really intrigued by that because, it wasn't just sort of purely transactional, right? There was a real loyalty and camaraderie to the experience.
But they paid $110 million for Woot. So
right.
what did they do with it after they bought it?
Well, so Woot, you can visit the site today. It's still there, humming along. They've evolved and modified the model quite a bit from where we started.
So
but it's still
identity.
Yeah,
okay.
It's still a core component of their operation.
Interesting. So what'd you do after that?
So initially, we spent some time. We kind of did our own, sort of projects for a while. I got involved in, doing more like mentoring and, helping other companies get started. But then after a while, kind of the five of us who were part of the core team there regrouped to do Meh.
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 You got to say it right. Meh.
It was a good counterpoint to Woot, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
But still moving inventory.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that afterwards. But
Yeah, so we're going to break. We talked about the past. Now we're going to talk about when we get back, present and future. Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand, and landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate one, maybe two leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
My name is Suresh Narayanan, COO and partner of Aerospace Quality Rd. We fix airplanes and keep them flying safe, which is what I wish I could say for Steve and Bob in saying my last name.
Welcome back to The Next Level, Conversations that Propel Business. We're here with our guest, Derek Chapin of Aspira Works, and you can find out more about him at aspiraworks.com.
Okay, so I know we're going present and future, but meh?
Meh.
I mean, come on. That's a great name. Tell us a little bit about that. What did you guys do there?
Well, so initially we started with the idea, the company is actually called a mediocre corporation. And, the idea there is that it's really to, just have it's a bit of an inside joke and have a little, bit of fun about sort of the, grandiosity and pomposity that sort of comes into, the tech world and the startup world sometimes, right?
Sure.
So basically we're saying, well, don't set your expectations that high, right?
So I was on your website yesterday, and
Right.
Anybody that's listening, please go to meh.com, and go to their FAQs.
Right.
You've got to read through the FAQs. They're hilarious.
Well, initially where we started out with, the ideas is, if you go look at the website for a mediocre corporation, we talk about basically being a laboratory. The idea was to experiment with all these different online retail concepts. But then what happened is because we had such a loyal sort of community and community following from Woot, they basically said, hey, we really enjoyed that Woot experience, and we don't really feel that it's there anymore. And hey, if you guys could recreate that, basically, so you essentially have a community of people saying, you haven't even opened yet,
Sure.
But we're here ready to be your customers.
Right.
And so we said, well, that's the logical place to start.
beautiful
Let's do
thing.
that.
You've been serving us steak, serve us some fish now?
Right. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
cool. So you guys are still moving odd lot inventory or odd
Right.
items,
I mean,
or
that's
what?
that's the idea. It's interesting because a lot of sort of typical retailers, we have this analogy. We use farmers versus hunters, right? Mm-hmm. So most in the retail world, most buyers are farmers. You have a sort of stable set catalog of goods that you're carrying, and all you're really talking about is a little bit of incentives on the margins and et cetera. So you're kind of tending those crops.
Right.
Whereas, we have no consistency. Basically, it's like, if you don't get up and hunt, you're not going to eat, right? And so it was really interesting at the time, kind of leading up to the sale of Woot, for example. We were doing a road show and meeting with all the kind of top shelf, VC and PE firms, the Sequoias and Red Points, et cetera. And they would ask me, basically, what revenue numbers are you going to hit, this month or so? And it would be, the fifth day of the month. And I'd basically say, well, I can't really tell you with great precision because we only know what we're selling for about the next 5 days. What we're going to be selling, 3 weeks from now may not even be in the warehouse, right? I mean, it's something that somebody has to go out and find.
Wow.
Right? And it's interesting because a lot of I think a lot of people are very unsettled by that level of uncertainty, but that's just, that was our world and we were used to that. So
Especially VCs that want to put a lot of money in. So
right.
So, all right. So you've done the Woot thing. You've created your meh and other things, and you've been to Czech Republic, and so you've exited all of that. And how do you then wrap that up into something new, which is Aspira Works? So tell us, what is Aspira Works, and what's the value prop for that?
So basically, what I'm doing with Aspira Works is, helping companies achieve their growth and scaling aspirations, right? Using the experiences and all the things I've learned through the years working with helping to launch or grow and exit multiple companies.
So what does that look like? I mean, who are we talking about? What are they challenged with? What are you helping them put in?
So a lot of times it's typically small and mid-sized businesses that have a founding team or owners where they have a particular skill set. They're developers or technical people, or they could be chiropractors, or they could be electricians or plumbers. But whatever it is, they're kind of skilled at their particular knowledge, but they don't really know all the everyday sort of operational, financial, team building aspects to making a business grow and prosper and run efficiently.
So are you helping them on the front end go get new business, or are you on the back end helping them handle the growth that they're already experiencing?
Well, so it's actually both of those. So part of it is to identify where are growth opportunities, right, that perhaps they're not seeing, right? So kind of looking through, helping them identify where are the growth opportunities, and then looking at ways in their operations, basically to develop the capabilities through systems, through people, etc., to pursue those opportunities, right? So you get kind of a virtuous circle where you identify the opportunities, you can identify some operational efficiencies and people that you need to help get you there, and then take some of the take some savings and direct that into marketing, to help reach your goals.
So what's the most common 2 or 3 things that you see that your typical client is challenged with?
I would say so. A couple of things. A lot of times, they do tend to be somewhat cash constrained, right? So they're very mindful of their financial resources, and so it's really helpful to have somebody come in who's not, let's say you're not from a large publicly traded corporation, but I've been there multiple times before, right? So from an operating experience, I can say, well, here's how we can help achieve your goals within the resources that you have, right? The second thing I would say is a lot of times you just you don't know what you don't know, which is one of the most challenging things.
Sure.
Right? So they have a certainly the goal, the aspiration to grow, but they don't necessarily know, well, what's the best way to pursue that. And a lot of times it's very helpful to have somebody coming in, essentially like in almost like a strategic consultant, or like a outside board director kind of role, and basically take a higher level view of the business and a more sort of removed view of the business, and be able to really give good advice along those lines.
So I'm sorry.
No.
Do you find that the business owners recognize their need of you, or is it their advisors who recognize the need of you and kind of bring you in?
That's actually a really good question, and I'd say a lot of times it's not necessarily the business owners themselves, but it's other people who know me, or I've worked with in the past, who they'll be having some other conversation, and then they will tell the business owner, like, hey, I know somebody who can help you, and that's a lot of my a lot of my business, comes from those sort of referrals.
Does your revenue come from consulting, or are you actually taking a stake? Like, are you making an investment into their businesses?
Primarily, it's from the from the consulting services. There are times when I'll take an equity stake, or I'll make an investment, but depending upon the company needs, a lot of times there will be cases of bringing in other people, to help out, with the business, whether that's from a, like an accounting, bookkeeping, or whether that's from, like a marketing or other sort of components. And, those people need to be paid in cash. So there's there's definitely a cash component to it.
Interesting. All right. Well, so what is the who are the people that you threaten? That sounds like a weird question, right? But in any, I mean, sometimes in Stephen's business and health benefits, it's the HR people that feel threatened because they feel like he's, like maybe calling into question what the decisions they've made, which is not the case, but sometimes they feel that way. Do you find that, you're stepping on somebody's toes more frequently than others?
Well, it's an interesting question. I guess I've never really thought about it in that context of, who do I threaten or who's threatened by me? Because I guess in a way I don't really, I don't see the world as sort of a zero-sum game, right?
You don't.
I don't.
But sometimes
they might.
We definitely
That's
don't.
a good point.
In our case, they usually become our friends, and they love us, but it's usually the CFO or the business owner that makes the decision, and then they come along,
I would say probably perhaps the people who would be threatened by me are maybe the people who are, let's say they're sort of like, whether they're, financial advisors or, accountants or some other sort of advisors like that, but they've really only been in the role of, basically a third-party advisor. They don't have the sort of, been there, done that, direct operational history, which you can really translate directly when you're talking with the owners.
Yeah, I can see that.
What would you do for, you're a consultant, you've had a lot of experience, you're helping other people grow their business. If you could change one thing about the way your business is operating, what would you change?
I would say it's. I think the thing I've struggled with is this kind of goes back to the question you asked earlier about when you don't know what you don't know, and so a lot of times it can be sort of difficult to sort of explain, I think, to a lot of business owners, like, well, how are you going to benefit, and what results can they see by working with me? And it's much easier when I have those people they know who can say, we worked with Derek and he helped us with X, Y, and Z.
Well, Derek, thanks so much for being on our show today. We're going to have to wrap it up there. If you want to know more about the show, please go to nextlevelshow.com. If you want to know more about Aspira Works, go to aspiraworks.com. And please go explore our archive. You can find us on iTunes at The Next Level Show. And check out the show with Eric McGarity at Globe Runner. He's a very interesting guy, has dyslexia, is a trained sculptor, and
chef.
And Stephen said that his business was built on quicksand. So go listen to that and figure out why.
Right.
See you next week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.